Yeah. Hey, Steve. How you doing in there?
I'm sorry, I had a few technical difficulties,
No
but
worries.
welcome everyone to today's webinar. And I'm Steve Schmidt, the COA-PD coordinator. I just wanted to share a few housekeeping chores before we hand things over to Laura for our webinar today, the Student Voice through Participatory Media, Multimedia. And please introduce yourself if you have yet to do so in the chat. And just as we go on today, please use the Q&A for any questions that you might have during our presentation for today. Just as a reminder, you will receive a certificate and a webinar recording link 24 hours after the end of today's webinar. And other resources that Laura provides will be available 48 hours later than today's presentation on the COABE website. And it is my great joy and privilege to introduce the presenter for today's webinar, someone I've known for years and a wonderful leader in our field of adult education, Laura Porfirio. And Laura is a trainer and consultant with Creative Narrations and Elevation Educational Consulting Group. And you're definitely in for a treat today to see her presentation on student voice through participatory multimedia. It's a great session. And thank you so much for being a part of it. And without further ado, I will turn things over to Laura. Laura, thank you so much for presenting today.
Of course, and thank you so much, Steve, for being here with me. I know you're going to help with the chat and everything. There's a lot of people here, and I'm really excited to see some names of people that I know. Thank you all for coming, though. So nice to be here. Yeah, I'm Laura. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. I'm working all over the place all the time with different groups in the United States and other places too, around adult learning, participatory media, training, all kinds of stuff. But this topic right here is my favorite one. And I was so excited to get the opportunity to do this with you. Some of you have probably seen me do a lot of this stuff before, but if you're back, that's because you liked it and you wanted more. I was telling Steve, I've been doing a lot of storytelling work these days, not just with adult ed, but other programs too. And I'm really excited. So thank you all for introducing yourself in the chat. I was able to kind of skim through and see all the amazing places you're all coming from. And Steve, again, thank you. He'll be making sure that you have access to this PowerPoint and the handouts. The handout we will be using during the workshop, so make sure you get your hands on that before we get too far. I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right in. We did some introductions. I'll do some framing. I'll talk a little bit about storytelling and participatory multimedia, particularly in the context of adult ed. I'm going to take you through some little taste tests of the process of creating multimedia narratives, just so you can see like how they're made. Uh, this session is really mostly focused on helping adult educators use multimedia in their programs, in their classrooms. And yes, it does apply to not just classroom practice, but other practices too, like marketing and outreach and grants and all of that. So that's what we'll be talking about a little bit later towards the end. And you're going to have lots of resources in your hands to keep this going. Okay, so why are we doing this? For me, the role of digital storytelling and education in general and adult education is huge. It's all about relevant, authentic sources for your classroom, for your English language learners, for your GED seekers. It's content and materials by the students for the students. Multimedia and storytelling in general, really, just like I said, it keeps it relevant. It builds skills in multiple literacies. I mean, I don't have time. This could be a whole other workshop on multiple literacies and multimedia storytelling. But I mean, if you think about the traditional literacies of reading and writing and the act of crafting your story and then in a community, in a cohort, in a classroom, it's really rich. It's digital literacy, it's civic literacy, It's informational literacy, people, getting information and making sense of it. It's a lot of making sense. Yeah. So anyways, you all know what literacy is all about, and we're gonna talk in a little while about like how digital multimedia storytelling relates to these literacies. But I just want to really emphasize the fact that when students and teachers craft their own stories and create whatever visuals and media out of those stories they can do, whether it's like just writing and publishing in a newsletter or going full force and making a digital story, a literal multimedia story. Um, we're just consuming way too much information and media these days. And when we become producers of information and media, then we are just so much smarter about how to consume the media that we're doing and be critical thinkers about it and know that every message that comes at us through the media is intentional. So how cool is that? That's why we do this. So let us not delay getting if you have never seen a digital story, I'm super excited that you're here. If you already have, you probably haven't seen this one yet, so it's pretty new. So let's go ahead and start with that. And Steve, you're gonna jump in when there's a burning question in the chat or a comment. I'll check in on the chat in a minute, but be sure to let me know, especially after we watch this story. All right, let's make sure we get this. All right. Get myself out of the way here.
Hi, my name is Jimena Barrios, and I am from Bolivia. I have been living in the United States since October 2023. I am here now because years ago, while I was working as an elementary teacher in my home country, I never imagined that I would reconnect with a past crush, feel an emotional connection again with him, fall in love, get married, and move to the United States. I left almost everything behind in Bolivia to start a new life and give my relationship a second chance. When I first arrived here, I was so afraid to speak English in stores, malls, or even on the street. Whenever someone spoke to me, I would always say, yes, 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 even when they talked too fast for me to understand. I was too shy to ask people to repeat themselves. Although I have learned English in my country, I felt unprepared due to my non-native pronunciation and the lack of familiarity with local expressions. At first, I was so scared to speak, not just face to face, but also over the phone, even for simple things like making a dentist appointment. I would pick up the phone and dial the number, but as soon as it started ringing, I would panic and hang up before anyone answered. I felt so embarrassed because I did this more times than I can count. Eventually, I found out that Coconino Community College here in Flagstaff, Arizona, where I live now, offered English language classes. I was so excited to join these classes with my son Joaquin. I thought we would simply improve our English. But we soon discovered that the school had many more opportunities for both of us. Thanks to these classes, I now feel more confident speaking with others. One of my classes, called College and Career Ready, helped me build confidence by teaching me how to listen carefully, write an appropriate resume, and prepare for future interviews. I am so grateful to my teachers, Deborah Goldenstein, Ann Stoughton, and Daniel Nickerson, who has supported me in every class. Another class is civics. I learned about the history of the United States and much more. Now I understand the pride Americans feel when singing their national anthem. and the importance of participating in the voting process. I even had the opportunity to volunteer during the national elections and experience that wonderful process firsthand. I met important people there. I love my classes because they allow me to socialize, meet people from different countries, and make new friends. I feel so fortunate to connect with such wonderful people here in Flagstaff and have access to these incredible opportunities. Oh, and by the way, I finally called and made my dentist appointment.
Okay. Well, I sure hope you all were able to hear and see that. I'm gonna go ahead and check the chat now. And I am gonna want to hear from you in the chat right now about what was powerful about that story that you just heard. What was powerful? What will you remember? Start chatting it and I'll read it out. Her fluency, yeah. I mean, she has an accent, but man, is she fluent and eloquent. The self-confidence, yes, willingness to be open, the written note, yeah, her overcoming fears. And just putting pictures to her words made her story come alive. Okay, love it, love it, love it. What was yes, the voice. Okay, education opened the door. What was the like one word or image that is gonna stick in your mind forever because it just really grabbed you? Like, yes, the all of those powerful messages about adult ed and her learning, but like, what was the image or thing? Yeah, okay. Yeah, the way she crafted her story. All right. Somebody give me like one specific moment. Okay. Of course, that's the title, right? The dentist appointment. Yes, absolutely. What's another image or word that will stick in your brain? That word panic. She used that word panic and she illustrated it too. Yes. I keep saying the word yes, yes, and I just love how she said when people would talk to me, I would just say yes. Oh yes, yes. Has not done that if they've tried to learn another language? And yes, oh my God, I love it. Okay. So this is good. This is good. I'm going to keep us going. Don't worry, you're going to have all these stories and more to share with your colleagues and students as we go along. But, that is the power of multimedia storytelling. I mean, storytelling alone, just somebody's voice is so powerful, right? And I don't want to undercut that. There is nothing like speaking and being heard. There is nothing like writing down a paragraph or a letter and have it be read. Um, so yeah, and don't worry, please, Steve, we will help you all with making sure you can have full access. My email will be in there at the end too. If anybody loses out on any of the materials, you can email me anytime. Okay, but let us see about why we think storytelling is important. And what I'm gonna do is while you guys are getting some comments in the chat, like We already talked about it a little, especially in the chat from you all, that power of her voice. But why is storytelling important, especially in adult education? Lived experience, yes. Let me see if I can reattach the handout. All right. Um, Love it. Okay. People using their, yes, true, authentic, lived experience with people using their own words. Um, and needing to be heard, wanting to be heard. We always say, tell your story. Because if you don't tell it, somebody else might tell it for you. And if it's not your words, it might not be exactly what you want to be hearing. Yeah. So, yes, individual experience. Love it. Love it. Okay. So all of those things. And what we do with stories in education, I think, is if you really want to connect with your students, have them tell their stories. It's going to tell you a lot about them. And then you can find out what the community issues are. Oh my God, I love all these chat comments. All right, love it. I hope you're all watching all of the chat comments too, because they are all so brilliant. Okay. Um, I feel like I've used storytelling before to not just reveal community issues and look at them and acknowledge them, but maybe even take some action on them, do some research, figure out what can we do about this issue in our community. We're telling our stories about our lived experiences around these issues, but sometimes that's not enough. We got to take some action. But on the most basic level too, storytelling really inspires people to think and reflect and say what's going on with them. And so conversation, building connections. And if you have any other ideas, please do add them in the chat if like how storytelling can really help teachers and learners, whether people are crafting and telling their own stories or just listening to other people's stories through, digital storytelling. Um, yes, yes, yes. Okay. So yeah, keep on if you have any other ideas about how storytelling helps teachers and learners, please feel free. I'm going to do a little time check now. I think we are just right on time. All right, very cool. So I'm going to go through very briefly. Again, these are, I swear to God, all of you are going to get these handouts. I promise, promise. Um, but digital storytelling in adult ed, I'm just going to go through this very briefly so you can know how these stories were produced. Um, Digital storytelling in adult ed is in fact, we started it as project-based learning. How can we integrate technology? How can we help students document their powerful stories? How can we get students collaborating and peer coaching with each other to go through to this final product? It's the best project-based learning, but it's definitely context bit driven. It's relevant because it's students and their voices and their lived experiences. Digital storytelling and storytelling in general is fantastic for differentiated instruction because everybody can say something about their experience, about their lived experience, even if they have very limited vocabulary. And then you go on from there for writing and all of that. It is challenging, but just like adult education, it's always happening in community. Yeah. So digital stories are always personal. We don't ever recommend that you try to tell somebody else's story, and I already told you all why. I'm thinking you probably all agree. It's multimedia, so again, it's extra powerful with the imagery and the sounds. It just kind of draws you in a little deeper through the senses. We are very resourceful. When we started doing digital storytelling in adult ed, we didn't have smartphones and we only had like Microsoft Movie Maker. And let me tell you, part of this presentation is a little information on how you can access some really easy, basic multimedia tools. Love it. Oh my gosh, keep them going. Listen and see. When you hear and see stuff, it just kind of you remember it better. Just like a in-person storytelling is another level from like a podcast, but I don't know. For me, there's something really powerful about just hearing somebody's voice. Their people and their voice, it's part of who they are. It's different than reading something that somebody wrote, right? So there's just all these levels. But yeah, digital storytelling, and I think most things that happen in adult ed are happening in community. That's the beauty of adult ed, right? So, let us watch another movie. Are you guys excited? Do you have your popcorn? I forgot to tell you to bring popcorn, but it's only a few minutes. And this is another story. This is a story that got made in Tucson with a ARPA funded project called the COVID years. And we had a really diverse group of storytellers in that group. And this website, Stories for Change, that ARPA funding gave us seed money to start to create this website. And both Jen and I from Creative Narrations are adult educators. It's how we met, and it's in our hearts. And we created this website pretty much for adult educators. So, the in the materials and later on, I'll be sharing the website a little more. You can see that, but you can access this and the script. Actually, if you want to go ahead and hopefully you were able to get the handout because on page 2 of the handout, you can see the script of this story. You don't really need it right now, but I just want you to know that it's there if you wanted to use this with your students. Okay, so let's go ahead and let me get rid of that chat for a second. And Steve, you're going to let me know if you heard any issues with audio or visual. I'm assuming there weren't any the first time. All right, good to go.
No issues whatsoever. Everything came out perfectly for the video that you showed.
I had to check because when does check ever go right all the time? Anyways, I'm knocking on wood right now. All right, and I'm going to start the movie.
During the pandemic, I bought a house. It was the most important moment of my life. I didn't even really know what the word mortgage meant before. My realtors, my housing counselor, and my loan officer explained every step of the process in detail. I was really lucky to get down payment assistance, but the requirements created a lot of challenges, and COVID slowed everything down. At one point, after 6 months of working on this and risking everything, it seemed like the deal was not going to go through. But my realtor Erin demanded, appealed, compelled, micromanaged. She cut her own costs, had me write a letter to the seller, and pleaded with the seller's realtor. They all worked so hard for me because they knew my story. In 2016, my family was homeless. I brought my 3 siblings and my mom from Michigan so they could live with me. In the beginning, along with my friend, there were 6 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I was the head of household. We had a lot of housing insecurity growing up. We were always moving, always being evicted. At one point, living in a motorhome in someone's front yard. As a teenager, I escaped this by moving in with my grandparents. At age 16, I started working, started sending money to my family, and saving as much as I could. At age 26, my family was now independent and moving out. The last big goal I set for myself, the thing I dreamed of, was to buy a house. When I got the keys, it was the happiest moment of my entire life. But I kept asking myself, am I allowed? Am I allowed to own a house? A year later, I sat alone in the quiet of my home. COVID had kept me inside my home by myself most of the time. I had my own nest, but now it was empty. The weight of responsibility from my family was lifted from my shoulders. I didn't know what to do next. My friends told me, now it's time to enjoy what you worked for and live for yourself. I'm still figuring out what that means. I thought buying a house would relieve me of all my problems and I'd finally have peace. I have so much gratitude for what I have, but I also have so much anger that other people don't have that. And I have guilt that finding stability in the chaos of COVID didn't suddenly heal me. My nervous system still feels all the years of instability. All the obligations I had over the years are a ghost weight still bringing me down. I made it out. But I wonder, why do we have to sacrifice so much to have our basic needs met? So many people in Tucson are experiencing evictions and rent hikes, and it's getting worse since COVID. So many of us grow up thinking we might never be allowed to feel secure. Even when we do everything right, everything we're supposed to do, it doesn't bring us peace. We still don't feel at home.
Mm, so powerful. All right. So, one of the reasons that we love participatory multimedia in adult ed is because it really does hit a lot of these concepts that we care about so much. I would love it if you could chat some I would love it if you would chat some ideas that you are seeing represented, connections to both of those stories that you just watched. Okay. We heard from Jimena about her journey and to be an English language learner in Arizona and not be able to even make a dental appointment. And we just heard Rihanna's story about housing. How is this? Yes. Okay. Access. I mean, her making this movie and it being seen by other people in the community, they're going to be educated and they're going to have information that they didn't have before. And they're going to remember it and feel like it's so important because they could relate to it, right? Um, yes. What else? Anything else? Let me see. All righty. Good, good, good. Um, Yes, healing. I mean, it's a vicarious experience when you watch somebody else's digital story that even if you don't relate to it very specifically, there's some little element that you relate to and you see somebody who has healing. And healing is almost a never-ending process, right? I mean, I think that was a powerful part of Rihanna's story. Community, yes. Yes. Yeah, and thank you for recognizing her story arc. I mean, we definitely, when we craft stories, we craft them. We don't just let them tumble. Well, we do at the beginning, right? Stories come tumbling out, but then we craft them. We massage them and we figure out what are the important parts and what are the things to include. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, everybody, for chiming in. This is great. Okay, I'm going to keep us moving. Again, a 1 hour webinar on digital storytelling is enough for you to get a good taste and for you to want more. And I'm going to have lots of resources for you so you can get more. But I definitely encourage you to think through a lot of these issues more, share with your colleagues, share with your students, talk to your students about representation and local knowledge and capacity and healing and equity and access. They too care about these things. So that's why I'm providing all these materials for you. So how do you do storytelling? Especially how do you make a movie out of your story? First things first, in adult education, everybody has the capacity to make some time for crafting stories in their classrooms with, in community, in a cohort. But the first thing is to like choose a story. That's the hardest thing to do. Brainstorming ideas and getting them organized. What a great adult ed writing and speaking and listening and collaborating opportunity that is. A little bit of pre-writing, a little bit of like, timed writing, which we're going to do in a second here. And then writing the script and gathering the media. That's how we do it. And there's tools for you to do that with your students, besides even the like video editing software that I'm going to tell you about. I mean, you can use PowerPoint, you can use I'm sure some of you even know tools I don't know about. But but the core is the story, the voice, the lived experience, the personal narrative. And what makes it powerful are these elements. Voice, right? Your authentic voice, you telling your story. Economy, both of those stories were actually a little on the long side, if you ask me. I think a real effective story is not more than 3 minutes long, really. Always keep your audience in mind. Always make sure that there's some moment where you are emotionally connecting with your audience, and make sure you always have a point. You have like a reason to tell your story, a purpose, a message to deliver. Okay, so probably should have warned you earlier, but you are going to have to write. And I'm going to ask you to spend just about, I think we have time for like 3 minutes. All right. Quick. Again, this normally wouldn't happen so quickly, but I think you can all choose a theme out of those 3 bullets, and those are also in the handout if you have that with you, but it doesn't matter because it's right there on the screen. Get a piece of paper, and what I want you to do is make sure that you think of a moment when you realize you were a leader. Look around you and find an object or memento that represents an experience you've had as an adult learner. Everybody in this room is an adult learner, whether you're a teacher or a student or not. Or think about a moment when you did something that surprised you or other people. Again, quick, off the top of your head, I want you to write at least 1 or 2 sentences to start your story. Like what comes to your head first? And I'm going to set a timer right now for 3 minutes. You'll hear the timer go off when time's up. Okay, 3-minute timed writing. Here we go. Just about a half a minute left. Okay. Hopefully, oh, I love it. Okay, thank you all. Hopefully, you all had a chance to even just write down like one or two sentences, or even have a minute to think about one of these prompts. And I do have on here 5 minutes for writing. I think that's much better to really let people have a moment to think and write. But I don't recommend that you go too much further with like the initial timed writing brainstorm, like what story do I want to tell and how am I going to tell it? You might have noticed, if you have the handout, that I always recommend too that you include some kind of like visual or sensory, it's some kind of sensory detail, especially at the beginning, because visuals, you don't always have a visual, but when you're telling a story, sometimes it's just your words. You're even maybe just writing it down, you're not even saying it out loud. But any storytelling really needs to have those like sensory details to be really powerful. Well, maybe not need, that's a strong word, but they're so much better when you have sensory details. So, what we do in the adult ed classroom after we do a little bit of writing, even if it's just for 3 minutes, is that we share out. And what I'd like to do is maybe I want to project this stuff. Yeah, we've got a minute. Okay, so just in case you don't actually have the handout accessible to you, I'm going to go ahead and hopefully be able to project it. Let's see if I can change that. Now, let me stop sharing for a second and make sure I can find it. All right, in the meantime, you can probably think a little bit about what you wrote and what you want to share. And because it is going to be time to share in just a second. All right. All right. So let me start sharing again. And I'll have the handout. Okay, so in the handout, I'm scrolling through it right now. You can use this worksheet with your students. That's where I wrote down, like, make sure at least one of the senses is invoked at the beginning. And then story circlings, that's where the collaborative learning comes in and the peer coaching comes in, and people listen. And remember, listening is just as powerful a learning experience as speaking, right? When you're listening carefully and you're thinking of ideas to offer the person who's telling their story, that is a very rich learning experience, especially in an adult ed classroom. So, what I'd like to do is go ahead and get back to the slideshow and the chat. So, it is time for one of you, or all of you, sorry. It's time for anybody who has anything that they wrote down to put a sentence in the chat, something that they wrote when I gave you 3 whole minutes to think and reflect and write. And since we're not in person, I'm gonna ask you all to put a sentence in the chat. Ah. Awesome. All right, keep it coming. Thank you, Heather, for getting that show on the road. Hey, I never imagined. Oh, I love um I love a good hook where somebody is really kind of just opening their heart and saying like, who, me? Or I never imagined, I mean, a lot of storytellers think that what they want to do is like tell the whole story, the litany of this and then that and then this and then that. But when we hone in on a particular moment, a particular detail, a particular experience where they went, aha. All right, I need a few more. Oh, beautiful. My wife says I'm insane. That's a great way to start a story. Who doesn't want to know more about that, right? By the way, hi, Dan. Um, Love it, love it, love it. All right, let's get a few more. And then as we are going, one of those heavy days. Oh, the flowers. Okay. Now, because we actually do have just a couple minutes, I would love to have a couple of responses to the chats. This is a webinar that we can't really unmute and talk amongst each other, but you can imagine in the classroom when somebody has offered up even just the first sentence of their story, um, it's rich, right? And so what I would love for people to do is if you can reply to somebody who put, I don't know, is that possible? If it's not possible to reply directly to somebody's chat message, then you can just put a message in the chat saying, Dan, I want to know more about this. Oh my gosh, this couldn't be happening to me. Oh, oh, okay. Um, what I would love for you to do now, though, is to think about what question you have and what, even though people only put like a couple few sentences, we're really hearing a lot here. Um, what questions do you have? What encouragement do you have? Offer something up. And we're practicing that story circle cohort sharing and reflecting together and giving and receiving feedback because that is a super high power of in the world that we live in, but especially in adult ed for workforce prep and resilience and retention and persistence. Like people who are super engaged and learning from each other, they stick around and they persist and they follow through. Oh, so good. So good. Oh, thank you so much, everybody. And I know that not everybody is able to like chime in the chat. Probably some people are just listening and taking it all in, and I value that. I hope you all value it too. Um, and yeah, hopefully you can imagine doing this in person with a small group of students or even a big group of students. But again, it doesn't take much, right, to get a story going. And I think if you can express yourself well, intentionally and carefully, then you're going to get a lot more from the other people around you in the world. You're going to read social media messages differently. You're going to take in the current events and news a little differently. You're going to think about how messages are crafted. You're going to think about how the writing process is a lot. Again, I mean, we started doing digital storytelling because it was like great project-based learning for, tech integration, technology, getting people's hands on computers. I had a student one day long years ago when we first started doing digital storytelling. She signed up for a digital storytelling class and she came in and she said, "What's this?" It was a mouse. She didn't even know what a mouse was when she came in, and she made a movie, after the end of the class. She learned how to use the mouse and use the computer to craft a story. It's really, really powerful. Um, love it, love it. Oh, ooh, love it. I know. Actually, the problem with a 1 hour webinar like this is a lot of us are going to come away slightly not gratified because I definitely want to hear all of these stories in their entirety. Okay, I guess that's a hint. You're going to have my email. Don't forget to send me the final version if you keep going. Okay, so now that we've talked about the digital stories. And again, you're going to get lots of access to lots of different digital stories, many, many of them created even by adult education students. And I don't think I need to probably talk you into it to think about like, oh my goodness, all of the different ways that we can like amplify our students' voices by getting them to craft their stories and share them. These are language skills. That's, again, I said earlier, issues come out and then research can happen. You can imagine sharing Rihanna's story with students and talking about like how they relate to it. Who in this world right now doesn't know someone who's struggling with housing? I mean, everybody I know either is struggling with housing or knows someone who is struggling with housing. Again, okay, so comparing and contrasting, you can show different stories to a group of people. They don't even have to write their own stories. You just let people witness other people's storytelling, and then lots of rich analysis and conversation can happen. Um, Go ahead, and if you have any other ideas to offer about like how you could use these stories or stories like them made by other people in the classroom, like how could they be applied? How could that content be used in an adult ed classroom? If you have any other ideas to offer. And let's just see if anybody has any ideas in the chat. How could you imagine using digital stories in your classroom or in your work team? I've used digital stories as a teacher trainer as well to get my teachers talking and reflecting. I've used them in student leadership groups where we're trying to get to know each other and figure out what our issues are and where we're coming from. But what are the role playing? Ooh, love that. To give people fodder, ideas, and information to play a role. Role playing. Oh my gosh. I love role playing. Okay, and I'm just gonna say, talk about a contrast. Because with digital storytelling or storytelling in general, it is very personal, right? And it's very vulnerable. But if you can like play the role of somebody else, it's like you're acting and it's a little safer and you can use your creative mind and it's not so like heart-wrenching and personal. Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that's the first time anybody has brought up role playing, and now I'm going to add it to my slide for the next time. Um, Yes. Oh my gosh. Teachers. Yeah, because you don't really want to take up all kinds of class time sharing all about yourself. But when you offer a little bit of yourself to your students, they feel like you've made an offering to them, and they probably are going to feel a little safer letting you get to know them a little better. And when that happens, you are going to have a better time as a teacher. Ah, love it, love it. Okay. Mm, fantastic. All right. So, keep thinking about the learning, the adult education, instruction, and materials and strategies. Because, not everybody in this room is going to run off and have their students make a bunch of digital stories. In fact, if you are thinking that you want to do that, at least try to make your own before you try to teach anybody else how to do it. But there is a lot you can do. These stories are polished. They were created in a professional like workshop, boot camp kind of series of training days, but it really was only a few days. I mean, these stories can happen in just a few days' time. Um, but the different stages of process for story crafting doesn't matter what technology tools you have in your hand. It doesn't matter how much time you have. You can do this in one classroom session. You can have people, open up and with the right prompts, there's examples in there, and I'm sure you can think of your own. You can really get people thinking and writing and talking and sharing and coaching each other. And it's a beautiful experience. Yes, I feel like it's really good practice, right? To create space, like a comfortable space where people can open up and be listened to attentively. That is something that a teacher or a leader needs to do very intentionally and very explicitly, right? And then, man, you set these boundaries and you set this space. And then people can really expand within that space. Mm, how awesome. Microfiction turned into digital version. Oh, what a great idea. Okay. I love that you did that. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and skip this, although you'll have it in the materials. You can watch Matias's story. Matias made his movie with a little bit of help from me. It wasn't the usual like cohort community group story experience, but it's also possible for somebody on their own with at least one person helping them to make a movie. And he was actually featured in The Change Agent. That material is also in your handouts. Um, so the last thing I want you to think about, and we're going to end in just a couple of minutes here, is all the different ways you can, publish and promote your students' voices. So, think about that. I feel like it's really valuable to just have people sharing their stories in the classroom. But ooh, if you can like get those stories rippling out in the learning center, in the county, in the city, whatever, in the organization, depending on what kind of organization you work for. Um, oh, I love that question. No, I mean, like, as long as you don't have AI write your script, if you want help crafting it, and then you do lots of your own editing and make sure it's still your really super authentic voice. I'm not a big fan of using AI in digital storytelling, but I'm not going to tell anybody to not do it. I think it's awesome. Um, yeah, so oh good, there's an evaluation because I was gonna hope for something like that. But and I am here for, and I don't know if Steve, I don't know if this webinar can go a minute over if people have questions they want to stay late. I'm gonna let everybody go in a minute here.
Well, absolutely. We had a couple other questions if you'd be willing to answer
Of
those, and we
course.
certainly still do have a few minutes.
Tell me
Absolutely.
now.
So Heather Lee had asked, what do students think of themselves after making a storytelling video?
Mm. It's really exciting because when people start in a digital storytelling process, they are so freaked out. They don't know which story to tell, and they are just so unsure, and they can't even imagine anybody wants to hear their story. Usually what happens by the end is they're sharing it with everybody they know. And I think to me, that's a metric of the confidence. I think, am I answering the question? Like, how do they feel? What do they get out of it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they get the confidence, they feel heard, they feel like they are empowered because they have been able to just take a little bit of time to craft a message and not just have it blabber out and just spill out of them. They've had a chance to like hone in on what's important. Yeah.
One other question that we had from Carol Feingold was, is it if you were teaching over Zoom, is it still possible to do the digital storytelling technique, or is this only something that can be done in an in-person classroom?
We've done it virtually. I mean, it takes a little bit of extra attention to what technology, and this relates to the follow-up question I think Heather was asking about computer tech related. Um, so the reason we started doing digital storytelling in the first place, we already knew the power of stories. We'd been doing student leadership advocacy for a while in Tucson, but a friend of ours like went to grad school and came back and she was like, "We got a multimedia our students' stories, they can go further and longer and they're timeless." Um, the skills, I am still amazed at how much better my tech skills are after like learning to use a computer, learning how to record my voice, learning how to find pictures either on my phone or on the computer, search for photos that are common, the licensed to be open access, and then, placing them in my multimedia project. And so all of that decision making and all of that hands-on the tech tools with this project-based learning, people forget that they feel threatened by technology. They forget that they don't know how to use technology because they're so immersed in the storytelling and the peer coaching, and they're helping each other out. So yeah, tech-wise, big deal. And but virtually, I have done digital storytelling production, but it has to be with people who have a laptop and a smartphone and internet access and time to work on it outside of the actual training sessions, the classroom sessions or whatever. Like it's a lot of homework. Dan Halliday in here, we've done some stuff virtually and also in person. um, yeah, but it is possible. And you
And
can
we had
always email
another
me for help.
question
Yes.
that's they said, I've had my students tell their stories this semester. How can I get more support from digital augmentation?
Yeah, I think that's where you access help from some of our other experts in the field of adult ed. I mean, I think World Ed has a lot of training and tips on integrating technology into your practice as a teacher. Um, and I'm gonna go ahead and get that handout in the chat in a second here. If you have the students crafting their stories at the most basic level, you could use your smartphones to record them, have them read them aloud, because there's something really powerful too about writing your story and then delivering it auditorily, like you read it out loud and then you get to hear how you sound. I mean, for language learners, for sure. But anybody who has to like speak in front of other human beings can really learn a lot from crafting messages and then delivering them and hearing themselves talk. Oh, that's how I sound. Okay, well, I don't really like the way I wrote that now that I heard myself say it out loud. So audio recording, PowerPoint, like with captions and images to go with your written words. There's all different kinds of ways you can use technology to like couple with the students' stories. I hope that answers your question. Canva, but then somebody else said Canva is down right now. What the heck? Oh my gosh, I use Canva all the time. Okay, yeah.
We
Be
had one other question from
Go ahead.
Karen Diaz, and she said, "How could educators carefully manage sensitive topics that might be included in these stories?"
Mm, okay, here's a rule of thumb, and I will say this out loud explicitly to any group or individual that I'm working with around storytelling. Okay, one good boundary is do not tell a story that you are still experiencing. Even Rhiannon, like she told some stuff in that story that she has had years to like kind of let it settle. The other phrase we use is if there's no scab on that wound yet, don't talk about it in public. Don't tell a story in a cohort like this. Choose a story that you have had a chance to feel like you're not still traumatized by it. Yes, sensitive issues do come up. If they come up, I mean, they just don't have to go into the final products or whatever. It'll come up, and then help people figure out which details. The other thing I'm going to say is the fewer details, well, not the better. You need just enough detail. I was a victim of a violent crime is enough. Like, you don't have to tell more details than that. Then talk about your process of healing or how you got through it or what you're doing now after going through that. I hope that answers your question too. I mean, keep the details to a minimum, but enough to really illustrate. But yeah, sensitive issues will come up and just make sure people don't turn it into a therapy session either, because this is all about skills building. That's the other thing you can remind people. Okay.
Well, Laura, thank you so much. Really appreciate all the time that you put into delivering our webinar for today. And as I see a chat in the or see a comment in the chat about people are coming away feeling very invigorated from what you shared with them. And once again, as a reminder, you will receive a certificate and the recording link 24 hours after the end of the session. And the handout, if you were unsuccessful with getting it, will be available on COAB's website 48 hours after the end of the session. But Laura, thank you
Good
so
to
much
know.
again. And I know that you serve as an ongoing resource for those who would like to explore this in more detail. But we thank everyone so much for attending our webinar today, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars. And we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day today. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day and weekend.